Mr. K here again, talking about section 2-2 for business math. As I mentioned in our last video, in chapter 2 we're really beginning to talk about the different types of taxes and other deductions that are going to be taken out of your paycheck when you work a job. Unfortunately, we always have to pay taxes. There's an old saying, there are two guarantees in life: death and paying taxes. So as horrible as taxes may seem at times, you're probably never going to get away from them. Well, today in section 2-2 we're going to talk about state taxes. Now, different states may calculate their taxes in different ways. We're going to look at a way that uses taxable wages and personal exemptions. So, as we use these formulas, and as you can see on the screen in front of you, there are two formulas. As we use these formulas today, I do need to point out our personal exemptions box. This information right here is vital to being able to do these problems today. So, as I go through this, please pay attention to how I use the formulas and how I use our green personal exemptions box. And make sure you understand it. And if you don't, ask questions. So, let's take a look at step 1. Step 1 looks at our annual gross pay. Once again, annual gross pay is the amount of money that you can earn in a year at your job before your company takes out any taxes or anything. So it's the total amount of money that you earn in a year. And then we have something known as personal exemptions. Personal exemptions deal specifically with your marriage status and if you have any people that rely on you to take care of them, known as dependents. Most of the time when people think of dependents, we're talking about kids. Mr. Kowalczyk is married and he has 2 kids at home. Each one of those kids is a dependent. But you want to know something that's interesting? His wife also counts on it as a dependent. Why? Even though he's married, she doesn't work a job. She stays at home taking care of Mr. K and her daughters. And let's be honest, there's a lot of work involved there. So, the only person bringing money home is Mr. K. That means Mr. K is married and he does have dependents. And the interesting thing, of course, is his wife, right here, the married person that he is, she relies on him to pay the bills. So, if you know a person's annual gross pay and you know what type of exemptions they have, you can subtract them to find the taxable wages. Well, that's step 1. Step 2, what we're looking at is using those taxable wages. That's right, we take the answer from step 1 and we use it in step 2. And we take those taxable wages and we multiply them times a tax rate. Now let's explain something here when it comes to income taxes. Not all states have the same tax rate. Some states are more, some states are less. Well, you multiply them. And by the way, the tax rate is usually written as a percentage. You're going to have to convert that percentage and turn it into a regular decimal. Mr. K does that all the time to help him with multiplying. So when you multiply these two things out, you will find the annual tax withheld. That's the total amount of state taxes that are taken out of your paycheck each year. Let's do number 1 together. Rocky Evans. Rocky Evans earns $36,000 annually, also known as per year. He is single and he has 2 dependents. The state that he lives in has a state tax rate of 4%. So now we've got to use this info to answer A and B. So what is his taxable wages? Well, I'm really hoping that in trying to find taxable wages, you look up here at the formulas and you realize that in order to find the answer to A, we have to use the first step. So, what is his annual salary? What is his annual gross pay? How much money does he make in a year? Well, once again, we are using step 1. And if we look up there, we realize that his annual gross pay is $36,000. $36,000. And we're going to subtract from that his personal exemptions. Now, personal exemptions can be a little bit tricky. Why? Well, because we need to know what exemptions he has. Well, first off, he's single. All right, first off, he's single. That's good. All right, that's good. That's $2,000. We also know that he has 2 dependents. Perhaps that's 2 kids. Perhaps that is a girlfriend. Perhaps it could even be his grandmother. Anybody can be a dependent if they're relying on you to pay the bills. And they don't have a job. They're not earning money. So there's 2 of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply that times 2. All right? And what do we get? Well, some of you may have guessed it, $4,000. Well, if you add that up, you get $6,000. That's right. Add them up, and you get $6,000. Let's make that look more like a plus sign. Boom. There we go. So, that $6,000 is what you're going to write right here in your formula. Now, if you're asking, do you have to show your work for finding the $6,000? No, I'm not going to force you to show your work, but it won't hurt. It won't hurt to show that. And so, once you do the subtracting, you do your math here for step 1, you get $30,000. Now, let me remind you one more time before we move on. If you have more than one dependent, you are going to have to multiply. You are going to have to multiply. Okay? So, let's go on to B. What is the state tax that's going to be withheld from his paychecks? All right. We once again make sure we're looking up at our formulas and we make sure we know exactly what step we're using. And for this problem, we are using step 2. So what is his taxable wages? Well, it's $30,000. We just found that in step 1. And now we're going to have to multiply it times 4%. 4%. Now, let's be mindful to take that percentage and turn it into a decimal. So, once again, as a reminder, I imagine that there's a decimal right there. I move it over twice, and then I can get rid of the percent sign, and my new answer is now 0.04. So I can get rid of that. We don't need that. We're good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take $30,000 and multiply it times 4, or actually 0.04. And you get a final answer of $1,200. So each and every time that Rocky gets paid, money's going to be taken out to pay state taxes. How much is he going to end up paying in state taxes each year? Each year he'll end up paying a total of $1,200. Once again, that's not per paycheck, that's per year in state taxes. As a reminder, if this confused you, you're more than welcome to go back in the video and rewatch any parts that you might have missed, or feel free to talk to Mr. K. Thank you, and have a good day.